Yo, what is up, guys? Back on another live stream. Look at that. All right. So it's Thursday. We've gone a few days with live streams this week. Gone over a couple of different things. The newsletter, if you weren't here at the beginning of the week, apparently my mic died. And I went through a full 30 minutes reviewing the newsletter and did not have any sound coming through it. So I did it again on Tuesday. And it's been an interesting, not week, but just an interesting time as I'm doing these live streams, figuring it all out. Some things come up, different things on different days. It's never perfect, and it's all good. Like, that's what we're here for. So today we're doing buyer hotline. I want to answer some questions, get engaged, help people out there, that are really looking for some context and perspective from the buyer side. And if you have something right now while I kind of do this intro, go ahead and start typing it into the chat so that I can pick them up and answer your questions. So, just a quick recap of what this is about and why I'm doing this, what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, or I guess about a week and a half or so, and what it means going forward in the future. So I went into May with this idea that I wanted to push myself. I wanted to get out there and stop talking about the idea of doing some series or like content and really just start doing it. So I told myself I was going to do a daily live stream for 30 minutes and just connect with people, figure out what it is that is valuable, what they like, what I like doing. And, over I realized really quick actually, I had a 3-day weekend plan where I was going to a place with no service. So it's not every single day in May that I'm doing this, but I am doing it uh, most of the days. So I don't know, 28 days of May, I'm doing this. So what I've kind of come up with so far is just these different ideas for series that or content topics that could become series. And it might not always be a live stream, it might just be something that I record. But I've already kind of clued you in on a couple of them. But what we're doing is what I've got so far is the newsletter review. I write a weekly newsletter. This is just me going into it in a more nuanced way, being able to add a little bit more context and color and answer questions for those that are there live and have questions about what they're looking at or hearing. Then I've got this buyer hotline. This is just Q&A, some opportunity for you to talk to a buyer, get your questions answered, and that's where I come in and help you out with that. This might have some guests on it from time to time, so it's not just me. Then we have Battle of the Sets, and that's where we take one category at two different retailers and not necessarily battle them head to head, but really just review them. What do we like? What do we don't like? How is it working for them and their customer? And really at the end of it, you should be walking away with a little bit better understanding of how buyers look at categories, how they look at the actual schematics, how those schematics get built, and what kind of like metrics influence how those schematics come to life. And again, if it actually meets the customer's profile, like the customer profile that Fred Meyers has is different from New Seasons or Market of Choice. So we kind of break that down and put different channels head to head in that way. And then the last one, which I'll be doing tomorrow, is just a product review. And it is different. It's not just a taste test. It's not me just tapping my nails on whatever the item is and over exaggerating the taste of it or how the mouth feel and the texture is. It's me talking about it from a buyer's perspective. I'm going to share with you how I actually go through these reviews. When I was a buyer and had a product in front of me, what am I looking at? I'm looking at packaging, I'm looking at the product ingredients, I'm then looking at the quality and the taste and the pricing and support that they have behind it. So we'll give you again that behind the scenes look of how you can see what the buyer is really looking at and what they're looking for. So this will directly help you in when you go into a meeting, understanding what the buyer is looking for. You can answer those questions ahead of time or have the information on cue ready to go when you are talking to buyers and just create trust through your own knowledge of and understanding of what buyers are looking for. So that's pretty much the rundown. Like I said, I'm not going to do all of these. I'm not going to continue doing a live every single day, but I am going to show up with content in a different way. If you have if you have an idea of which one of these topics or series you like more, go ahead and share it with me so that that way I can continue doing that, right? Like if it's something that I love doing as well and it gives value, it's just a win-win. I do actually, part of this challenge was for me to get over myself and like my fears, get in front of the camera, get in front of people in a live stream fashion. So whatever happens, happens. You get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, like for whatever it's worth. And I I don't want to necessarily do that every single day, but I do want to pick out what it is that I can do and continually add value to the community. All right, so you probably don't see the number, but I see a number at the top of my screen and it shows 0. There are 0 people watching live. This is part of the risk. This is part of the challenge I think most people have. And I'm not going to go on this big tangent, but a small tangent here. So many people are afraid of doing this, getting from the camera, doing a live stream because they're worried that nobody will be there. Guess what? This who cares if nobody's here? Like for me, I'm getting over my fear and I'm getting more and more comfortable every single day. I'm going to get better at speaking every single day because I am doing this in this environment where I don't care that nobody is there. I'm getting my reps in. And when I look back and I see 0 people in the first month of the live streams, but then look forward and I see hundreds, if not more, I'm going to know that these are the moments that I had to get through to get to where I'm going. All right, enough Tony Robbins and all that stuff. Let's get into some questions. So, since nobody is here, I had some questions kind of that I pulled up from what others have asked previously of me and some fun topics for us to talk about. All right, this first one. How do you want reps to handle pricing conversations? Reps should always be forward with their information. When it comes to pricing, don't withhold the timing, the reason, as much as you possibly can. We want just transparency. Buyers want forward communication. They don't want to hear about it with a short timeline. We have timelines that we work through. And when we hear about it short notice, it really throws everything off. And a lot of retailers, especially when you get to the big retailers, they won't accept price changes when it is on a short timeline. And some don't even accept them at all. They will push back and say, no, we're not accepting that. Which, to be honest, as a buyer at a store that had 22 or a chain that had 22 stores, I didn't even think that was a thing. It was for me, I always looked at it like, hey, we need to be good partners. Shit happens. The economy is going through something, or something happened to their manufacturing plant, and it ended up they had to invest into rebuilding, and they have to, absorb a cost increase to help cover those expenses, whatever it is. I just knew as a partner, we would work through that together and figure out, well, if I know what it is and I know when it's happening and I know what it's going to do to my retail, then I have a lot of the information. And for me, it really comes down to that transparency and communication. Not every price change is gonna be a bad thing. I understand nobody likes getting a price increase, especially right now with the way the economy is, the way the customers are shopping and changing the channels that they're going through, the markets, they're cross shopping more. There's a huge, huge amount of value in keeping prices as low as possible. But when the shit happens, and it will, you need to be forward with that communication. We need to understand why it is happening. Is that because of tariffs? Is it because of packaging, raw ingredient cost? Is it, with chocolate and everything spiking? It's it should be something that you can track down and go back into where is this actually coming from and what does they affect. Now, the thing that I always thought about was nobody likes the cost increase, especially large ones. When at the end of the day, the retailer will most likely have more than one brand of that type of item. So there's always this risk from the brand side on who moves first. Like if I move my price, is the other competitor going to move their price? That is a risk that you have to take sometimes. And for me as the retailer, it's more about I understand, okay, one of the 2 brands or one of the 3 or 4 brands is moving up. The others might follow, but if they don't, we're gonna find out if that brand has brand loyalty and will actually survive that or be able to absorb it without losing their customers to these other cheaper products. And at the end of the day, if they can, that's more sales for us, and the margin rate will typically be about the same, but now you're taking a margin at a higher price point, so you're making more profit. Now, when the units go down and they transfer to another item, then it gets a little dicey in the category because now you're trading what could be a potentially higher retail to something lower, and you're either going to stay flat in your category or you might take a hit. So there's risk on both sides. I think the bigger risk is the manufacturer side. If you are especially in a competitive category like chocolate, for example, who's going to take the first price increase? You know, if you have to do that, you risk others not following, and then you get priced out of the market and you start losing your units more than what that price increase was really able to offset. And so that is a big risk there. All right. Still nobody here. That's all right. All right, let's get into the next one. How do you prioritize which emails to respond to first? Look, this is going to be different from every retailer and buyer. The retailers are going to have their own standards of how responsive you are as a buyer to either stores or to the brands or to distributors. And then within that, each buyer is going to have their own standards, which some might not be high. Some standards might be lower where they're going to let things go and they won't respond to you. And some might be, I got to answer everybody within 24 hours. And you're just going to find that spectrum. Now, it's not right or wrong. I mean, in an ideal world, it would be right for every buyer to respond to everybody within 24 hours, but the math just doesn't map that way. When you look at a buyer's day and they have 70 to 100 or 200 emails, depending on what it is, the math just doesn't allow for a buyer to respond to all of those emails. So you start breaking it down. If they responded to all of these emails, even if it was just an average of 2 minutes a day, that adds up really quick and it takes away from the actual work that they have to get done. So we have to look at this as a prioritization for the entire scope, right? Like not just the vendor. It's not how we prioritize which vendor we open. It's how we prioritize which email in general. And the way I would do it personally, first look through, most recent, like if I came in the morning and I'm looking at emails for that day or morning and the previous day. And I'm going to start looking at those first to see if there were any fires, anything urgent. So, subject line really plays a big role in this. Subject line has to be able to nail what it is that you're trying to get, what you are trying to get out of your buyer. What attention do they need to put towards? And that really comes down to a few different key things that I really think everybody could follow this standard. You should always include a company name, whether that is your brokerage name or if you're with a brand, put the brand or the broker, whatever company it applies to. Make sure that you include whatever the topic it is. It could be pricing, it could be category review, it could be distribution issue, and then whatever the ask is. So those three things allow a buyer to quickly see and prioritize what emails they really need to get to first. So I that's the way I would do it. I would scroll through subject lines first, see if there's anything urgent. I would look through those, which one's the most urgent, and you just kind of layer it down and just or drill down to those different areas, and you just hit the most urgent things first. And then you would go through, do another wave and look through, okay, what's next on the list or on the priority? And meanwhile, I would just say, like I said before, you're not always on email. You're not always checking your email. So depends on the person, but I would check email in the morning. I would do a block of work, things that I had to get done, and then I would come back and check it. I tried to actually remove notifications. So I didn't have any notifications on my phone for email, and I turned off notifications on my computer so that I have to actually open up on that screen and look at the emails. You will be surprised, but within a 2-hour window, a 3-hour window, there might be some things that come up, but they're not gonna be end of the world. Like, life will keep going forward. So, don't feel like you're gonna miss out on all these opportunities, or you're gonna miss serving somebody by just an hour or 2 of not checking your email. It's okay to get your own work done that you have to get done and prioritize that. Alright, what else we got? Oh, right. What annoys buyers most in brand meetings? Oof. I don't know if I have a most, like, top of the list here. There's a few things for me. When we're having a meeting, it doesn't matter if it is new item meeting, promotion meeting, business review, doesn't really matter. 2 things that really stand out. One is a deck that is extremely long. I'm not gonna go through your 50-page deck. You should know this by now. If you bring a 50-page deck and you expect to actually go through it all, you're absolutely insane. No buyer is really gonna be willing to do that, and I would make a point of it to joke about it. I try to have fun and, like, joke with people about this. I wasn't ever really, like, a super dick about it, but I would say, like, lift it up and, like, kinda drop it on the thing and, like, let it the sound resonate and just be like, "There's no way I'm reading through that whole thing. Like, let's walk through the pages that you think are most important." And comments like, "How many trees did you have to cut for this?" And, things like that. But the the deck should really be absolutely no more than 10 pages most of the time. You can fit everything that you really need to get to the buyer. All that information you can get to the buyer in less than 10 pages. And honestly, I would say 5 to 7 is max. You can get everything you need in there. The other thing that I would say is most annoying is when the buyer is asking questions or trying to answer questions. So one or the other, the rep is not really listening. They are engaged, but they're not fully engaged to the point where that like it I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. I think specifically there are multiple times when a rep asks me a question, I go to give an answer, and they kinda nod their head and to get the response out so that they can respond to what I was saying before I even actually conveyed what I wanted or what my answer was. And that is a huge pet peeve for me, like, feedback and whether you asked me a question or I'm trying to share feedback, like, that is the time to really pay attention. What is the buyer saying here? This is the person that owns the category. This is the person that makes the decisions. And it can ultimately really make an influence on whether that product is succeeds or it doesn't. All right. Got a question from Marwan. Hopefully I said that right. What are the best days to email a buyer? Well, I think that's gonna be a little different for everybody. I would say usually it's gonna be the best day would probably be like a Tuesday, Thursday timeline. Maybe even Tuesday through Thursday. Monday is tough, they've got the weekend, they've got a lot of store emails potentially. If they didn't go through anything, you're just adding on top of it and you're probably playing a numbers game. Tuesday, they might be catching up a little bit from Monday on the email, but better chances. And then Wednesday, Thursday, they have a little bit more time, but like I said before, they're still doing their job, but they have a little bit more time because they've caught up over that first part of the week of the email game. And it can vary so much during the part of the year, what categories they manage. So I wouldn't say that there's one best day. And what I would say is try to track it somehow with your buyers that you are most concerned with, like your top 5 buyers. Make sure that you're getting an idea of how long does it take them to respond to you. Like if you send an email on Tuesday, are they responding that day or are they responding by Thursday or Friday? And that might be a good way to over time see, okay, well, I'm usually getting a response by on Thursday. Maybe I'll just send the emails on Thursday. It's not really a perfect science on this. It's really just using your own judgment and experience and what happened during that time. Thanks for the question. It's funny. I don't know how long you've been here. It says there are 0 watchers or viewers. So this whole time I thought I was just talking to myself. All right. I'm gonna do probably one more, and let's do this one. So, what role does packaging play in your review process? So, there's different layers to this. When a brand is coming up and they're emerging brand, they're gonna probably not have the best looking packaging, and that's understandable. I think from a buyer's perspective, especially in natural and somebody who is looking for innovation constantly, we would see that a lot. Now, that might not be the case for the Safeway Albertson or Kroger or Walmart. They might be seeing more of the buttoned up packaging. But we saw it a lot when I was at New Seasons. We had local vendors, we had other regionals that were maybe a little bit outside of our region, but they're trying to grow. And they would not necessarily have the best looking packaging. Now, that's something I can get over. Like as a just a general rule, as a buyer, the first thing I would look at from a product is the packaging because that's ultimately what the customer is looking at when they're walking down the aisle. So to me, it should feel as if I'm a customer, I know exactly what I'm looking at, what I'm getting, what function it has, if there is a function, or if there's attributes that really make it stand out. Those should be really, really, those should stand out to the customer and they can see it clearly from 3 to 4 feet away, if not more. So that's where I would say there's probably a big miss in the emerging side, but we were okay with that most of the time. You know, if it's a really good product, the pricing's right, it's a good fit for what it is in the category, or it brings something unique, we can work with you through the packaging changes and the updates and we know that this is just an iteration. And I would just say if you are in that situation, acknowledge it. Hey, acknowledge I don't have the design team. Like if they say something about packaging and how maybe it's not very fitting yet, take the feedback and let them know, like, hey, it's something we're always working on. We want it to stand out and make sure that it hits the right market and the right customer. We will take this feedback and we'll be working on it. But you have to really mean that too. Can't just say it and give them some lip service and hope that, they'll take you on and not ask you about it again. And ultimately, the buyer asking that and pushing you on it is helping you build a better brand. So it would be wise of you to take that advice and feedback from a buyer when they give it to you. The other thing that I noticed a lot was, or what I really paid attention to, was the actual format and the size of the package and how it would fit into the category. So if you think about, let's take a beverage and say the average bottle or can in that category is 7 inches tall, but you come in with a bottle that's 9 inches tall. Now, first thing in my mind is that even going to fit on any of the shelves that I carry? So that is highly important. And that is actually a block. That could be a block from you getting accepted if it will not fit on the shelves. And I was always very forward with that. I would let the manufacturer know if I really like your product, I think it's a great fit, pricing works, but the product packaging is not gonna fit on our shelf, like, that is a real situation because we can't just always reset every shelf in every store, especially when it's a larger chain like that. It requires a lot of bandwidth, and to do that just for one brand that is outside of the normal packaging of the category, that's gonna be a hindrance. So, if you are a brand that is working through, finding your packaging and your product, getting it on shelf, be very aware of what else is out there. And it's okay to be innovative with it. If you have a different shape bottle or something like that, but try not to. I would really focus on the height, number one, make sure that it's around the same standard as what is already in the category. The width is kind of a gray area. If the shape of the bottle makes it a little bit wider than the standard, like because you're wanting something unique, that's probably okay. But you want to be aware of that and not go too wide, where you could potentially be taking up 1.5 to 2 times the space of a normal item. Because then the requirement for you to stay on shelf is to match those sales for two of the normal items. And so you're putting a heavier burden on yourself because now you're taking up more space. You better earn it with the sales that you have behind that product. So, yeah, I mean, height, width, the look, all of those things play into it. And I would say overall, like I said, the height is a block. So always make sure that the height is pretty close to matching the category standard. The other two you could probably play around with and make something work, especially if you're on a budget as a smaller brand. You don't have to have it perfect on day one. These are iterations that you go through. It just depends on the retailer if they're going to want that item or not. Like I said, the big retailers might not want something that is, not really buttoned up with their packaging. All right. That's it for today. Thank you for checking it out. And just as a reminder, I've got one more live stream tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a product review. I actually got the new Primal rotisserie seasoned chicken strips. I'll be doing that. I have not touched this yet. I have not tried these products yet. I'm a huge fan of Jason Burke and what he's doing with the company, what he's doing with the products, and just the way he presents himself on LinkedIn. It's really awesome to see his growth and how he helps others. So I'm really excited to try this, and I'm honestly shocked that I haven't tried it yet, but I hadn't seen it in stores around here. So I was able to pick this up. I'm gonna give it a try. I will do a little finger tap tomorrow. But yeah, I'll be on tomorrow, 10:30 Pacific. If you want to check it out live, you can ask questions. We'll talk about the product review process and get into that part of it. But yeah, thanks for joining, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.